Hi, good morning, friends. Thank you all so much for being here. I am Christiana Gaudet. Thank you for being on my YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed, please do. We are going to be doing an hour-long free class. If you're watching in replay, thank you so much for being here. And let me hit Do Not Disturb. How about that? Okay, Do Not Disturb for 1 hour. There we go. Okay, so our class today is Tarot Questions and Dialogues. Wherever you are in your tarot journey, I think you will find this a really interesting and informative class because it will help you learn, develop, quantify, and understand some tarot techniques, and some tarot techniques that a lot of us do, but are very rarely actually taught. So let's have some fun. Let me say hi to some of you already here. Tony, happy to see you. Baby Cake's glad you're here. Karen, Dave, Marion, Marcos, who is Anna, Sally, going through the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through. Iva, nice to see you. Smile Soul 20, Disco Bunny, you're Kristen, I know that. And Georgina, nice to see you. So thank you all so much for being here. I am going to drop a link for my next class on Zoom. We do a few classes and a few meetups for free here on YouTube. I also tend to do one premium class a month on Zoom, and you can get your ticket for April's class now. I am dropping the link for that. I also want to remind you that I have recently moved my regular live readings from Facebook to this YouTube channel. And so 4 times a week, I am live on here doing different kinds of readings for free for you. And in fact, I'll be back here an hour after this class ends. I'll be back here at 12:30 Eastern Time today with your Saturday Psychic Sampler. So if you have a burning question, I'll be happy to pull some cards for you and do a free reading for you. So that's later. Let's focus on what we're doing here today. Claire, glad to see you. Barbara O'Brien, great to see you. Okay, so tarot questions and dialogues. Let's start by talking about the questions we ask of the cards. And I was thinking back to writing class. I think a lot of you have probably at some point taken a Comp 101 class or a journalism class or something like that. And when you're writing, the questions that you're asking are the 5 W's and 1 H, right? Where, when, why, who, when, why, who, what, and how. So 6 questions, right? Now in tarot, don't we often start our questions with different words than that? We start our questions with will and should. And so let me ask you, if you would chat in, can you think of the words that you most often use or that clients most often use to begin their question for a reading? Is it will? Is it should? Right? Right. Claire's white. Yeah, that was the one I was missing. Yep. And what happens if we think about beginning questions for a tarot reading with those 6 questions that we tend to use in journalism? Who, what, where, when, why, and how? How does that change our experience of tarot? Right, and Barbara says, should I? Right, there's a lot of should I. And Claire, oh good, thank you Claire. Claire says, closed questions arg. By the time we are done with this class, I would like to think that you will be more comfortable with the closed questions. And we'll talk about why, how you become more comfortable with that and why. Okay, so Marcos, who is at it, does this person still think of me? Does my boss consider promoting me? Yeah, absolutely. Claire, will my ex, ... If I do this, will this happen? Betty, this is one of my favorites. Tell me about. Tell me about this new job. Tell me about this person I'm dating. I love that. I absolutely love that. Okay. Anna, rephrasing client questions to make them proactive and useful is indeed an art. Yes, yes, yes. And sometimes we do actually end up answering their original questions. Sometimes we don't, but we can still leave them satisfied. And that brings us to a whole other thing, which is, and this is a totally philosophical question that I have for you. Is there an available answer for every question? There are some readers who believe that, yes, any question, you should be able to answer any question. And I'm going to say there are some questions where there just is not an answer, especially predictively. I think that predictively there are some things you can kind of see coming. Some things are like, this could happen or that could happen. And some things, spin the wheel, anything could happen. And I think we have to, I believe, you may believe differently, and I'm happy to hear your beliefs. I think that we need to be open to the possibility that there might be a clear answer, that there might be a, well, this or that answer when we're talking about predictions. And some things are just unpredictable. And if you can't predict what's coming, what are the other questions you can ask of the cards that will be satisfying? And so that's an art too, and that goes beyond rephrasing. That's about finding the other questions around the topic. So, okay, if the question is, will I get this job I've applied for? And the answer is clearly, who the heck knows? We don't know yet. It's unknown. Then what are the other questions you can ask of the cards to make this be a meaningful reading? We can talk about how well you did in the interview. We can talk about what we see coming for a job, whether it's this job or not. What do we see for the future as far as career? When we talk about this job, if you do get this job, what will it be like? What do you need to know about this job? And what can you do now in order to be proactive in terms of your job search? So that would be an example of 5 different questions that you might ask around a question that started out as a prediction, will I get this job? And I would argue, even if you're pretty sure they will get the job, that doing all of those questions is a good idea. Absolutely. So let me go back and look at some other comments here. So nice to see all of you here, and thank you all so much for your participation. Iva, answering a question with a question. Honestly, I think in tarot reading, that is one of the few times that that's actually good and appropriate. You know, they always say, don't answer a question with a question. But in tarot reading, I think there are times. And then you can go about answering that question. But sometimes it's also a question for the client to consider. Sometimes one of the best things that can come from a reading is that homework that we give our client. You know, one of the things you want to meditate on, one of the things you want to consider going forward is, there we go. Okay. And Betty agrees that maybe Spirit or the universe doesn't want us to know, that we cannot always get an answer. And Claire agrees there is not always an answer when we're talking about future predictions. And yet we still must do the reading, and we still can do the reading. We don't want to end the reading with, I'm sorry, that's unanswerable, give me your money. Or even if it's a casual reading or we're reading for ourselves. No, there is no answer for that. Let's go get ice cream. I mean, you gotta be able to close the reading in a way to have the reading be satisfactory and satisfying no matter what. Marion agrees. Sometimes we're not supposed to know the answer to some things in that moment. Absolutely. Oh, Cheryl. Here's a question. Do you see a good future with? Do you see a good future with this new job? Do you see a good future between me and Dave? You know, that kind of thing. Right, absolutely. Cheryl, sometimes I feel that looking at the answer for a future question, I get stopped before I get to the end answer. Can you elaborate on that? I think there's some really valuable stuff in that comment, but I want to make sure I'm not reading into it what you weren't meaning. I would love it, Cheryl, if you would elaborate on that. Okay, so let me say a few other things. When we talk about a tarot reading, again, whether we're reading for ourselves, whether we're reading for someone in a casual way, whether we're reading professionally, we always want to have a great experience in tarot reading, right? And in order to have a great experience in tarot reading, we need to always be striving to be the best readers that we can be. And I think that most readers have a particular choreography, the way you like to do a reading, your favorite spread, your favorite techniques. And we often, when we talk about it, we say, well, I always like to do this. I always lay out this many cards. I always start with this or with that. And I think it's good to have that. It's good to have that technique in your back pocket that you do. However, I think that we become better readers when we learn a lot of different techniques. And even if you don't use those techniques all the time, if you have them in your toolbox, it will help you without a doubt. And there will be times that you got to come out of your regular choreography and say, oh, we're going to do something different today because, you know, for whatever reason, because of the situation, because of the question, because you feel called to do it. And let me say this too, that when we talk about the different techniques we use, the way we play with our questions, that is as much an intuitive process as the interpretations that we do of our cards. Once we are in the sacred space of a reading, what we do in that space should always be, to some extent, intuitively guided. Yes, of course, also guided by logic, of course. But intuition is in there. And so call on your intuition to help you know how to work with the questions, to help you know what spreads or techniques are going to be best. Call on intuition as well as logic for all of it. Okay, let's see. Let's see what else has come in here. Dave, if there is no available answer, could that mean that the story is still being written? Yes. Sometimes it's that, you're just not meant to know. But sometimes, exactly as Dave says, the story has not yet been written. It is unknown because it's undecided. We don't know if you got the job yet because they haven't decided if they're going to give you that job. And so then, might it be a good time to bring in some tarot magic to influence things in your direction? Certainly. Could the querent's choices still affect the outcome? 100% yes. Yes. And I think that's a really important point. Okay, here's a question we hear a lot. This is coming from Cinderella. What's coming toward me in love? Will I meet someone? And I think that I can show you some good techniques for playing with that as well. That's one where I definitely like to, typically rather than using a spread, just do a dialogue. And we'll talk about that technique today. Very good. Claire, I love being able to go off script as it tends to confirm things or dive a little deeper into the reading. Yes. And for those of you who are looking to, when we talk about reading for others, I hear two problems all the time. One is I can't seem to manage to do a short reading, and the other is I can't seem to manage to do a long reading, right? Because sometimes the reading is just 5 minutes and sometimes the reading's an hour. And if you're in a professional setting, maybe you must do a 20-minute reading, or you're asked to do an hour-long reading, or you're asked to fit it into 5 minutes. How do we expand and contract? These techniques, the number of questions we're able to work with in the time we have. If you have just a short period of time, you're going to find the most pertinent questions to give the best information in the shortest period of time. If you have plenty of time, you're going to pull out as many questions as you can and dig in as much as you can. Oh, Betty, have you ever had a client ask when they will die? Yeah. Once I got really, really angry with someone because they just would not stop asking that question. And they were very young. They did not have a terminal illness. They were really just doing it to mess with me. And it really was bothering me. I lost my temper with that person. And this is going back probably 15 years. And I still regret losing my temper. I hate that. There are times it's pertinent. If a person is quite elderly and they really want to know, how much time do I have to work with here? If a person has a terminal illness, there are times we want to quantify, what do you want to get done here? But my typical answer that will usually get people off that is, instead of talking when you will die, let's talk about how you will live. And that usually brings them along. Okay, so Cheryl, thank you, Cheryl. I was asked for a reading for a person who is a friend of a family member. The question was, how does the future look like for this lady and her boyfriend for whom she is planning to live with? And so, when we look at, the future of a relationship, and I'm assuming too, that this also a third party reading? Was she asking for herself and her boyfriend? Or was she asking for this couple that she knows? Because that brings in this whole other question of the third party reading. And, there are when we talk about questions, we can't really talk about questions without also talking about ethics. And that goes back to the death question too. Are there questions that you would feel it's just not ethical to ask? Are there questions that you're not comfortable answering? I think each person has to have their own ethics. The important thing is, do not do as I do and lose your temper, as I did. And do not scold people for the questions they ask. Again, this is where rephrasing or breaking out a question and finding many questions within the question can be extremely helpful. And when we look at how does the future look for these people who are planning on living together, how many questions are in that? Okay, they're planning on living together. Will they actually? Are they clear on where they're going to live and how are they going to get along, just in terms of toothpaste and hogging the bathroom or whatever? How are they going to get along as far as the finances? Is this, are they going into this relationship with the same intentions? Is it advised for them to be living together at this time? When we say, what is the future for? I can think of 10 different questions in a scenario like that. And so depending on the amount of time I have, I'll come up with the most pertinent questions. But I think what they're really asking is, will we be happy together? And to be honest with you, we have to honor the question, but we also have to recognize that is such a simplistic view of things. Whether you're happy or not has everything to do with the day, with the other things that are going on, with the minute, with the hour. There's so many factors. You may not be happy with the way they keep house. You may not be happy with the living situation you find. You may not be happy with the way they manage money, but you might be gloriously happy in the relationship. Or you may be happy with everything except the person's mother's driving you crazy. So, people come to us very often with just, is this going to work out? Are we going to be happy? But there are so many layers to that. and how many layers in you want to dig will depend entirely on the context of how much time do you have, how much do they really want to know, and in there is their advice. So with Cheryl's question, what is the future here? If you see problems there, might you be able to give them advice around, well, it looks like there's going to be some communication issues. So make sure you establish good communication protocols together. Or it looks like the two of you handle money and think about money very differently. And maybe that hasn't come up because you've been in separate households. But once you combine households, you're going to have to really look at making sure you keep your finances separate and making sure you can talk about money, So looking for what the problems are going to be and what the solutions to those problems might be makes it more proactive. It's not just, are you going to be happy or not? What problems are you going to run into? And what might the solutions for those problems be? And honestly, if you actually see the relationship not working out and you don't want to say that, then that is a really good way to sort of come up with, okay, here are the problems you're going to face. Here's what you might do to try to fix it. And then the rest is up to them, right? Okay. Dave, when they ask if they can trust a third party who isn't present, is it a good idea to try to answer that? So that is so interesting. And honestly, sometimes it'll come up in the cards for me that I don't trust a person around them even before they ask me. And, most specifically, is my partner cheating on me is a very hard one. Although, again, sometimes we'll see the infidelity even before they ask. But then, is it emotional infidelity? Is it spiritual infidelity? Everyone thinks about infidelity differently. So here's the key with that. If you already see untrustworthiness, you see the Seven of Swords, you see the Three of Swords, you see the Queen of Swords reversed, the King of Swords reversed, that kind of thing. You might say, hey, I see some trust issues here. Are you having trust issues? Now, if they ask, can I trust this person? It depends entirely on the situation. If it's a boss looking at, I've got these 3 candidates for this job, and you find one of them untrustworthy, yeah, you might say, I'm not sure. And what you might do is ask the cards, okay, I see this person as untrustworthy. In what way is this person untrustworthy? Pull some cards, see what you see. Or let's look at all the ways an employee might be untrustworthy. Will they be on time? Will they come to work when they say they're going to? How will they represent your business? How will they be dealing with your clients? What issues might they bring to the workplace that you need to be careful of? So again, that's a breaking out into many questions. Now, very often this trust thing is about relationship stuff. Now, if this is, hey, Robin Renee, you are 2 hours early. This is our class on questions and dialogues. The Saturday Psychic Sampler will be coming around at 12:30. Okay, so, if this is a person who's on a dating app and they've got like 5 people they're talking to on the app and they want to know, are these people trustworthy? I will absolutely do this. But we are not all seeing, all knowing. You cannot ethically, in my opinion, say to someone, it really looks like this person is cheating on you. You can say, I have some questions here. Looks like you have some questions here too. Let's look at how you can have a dialogue with this person. Let's pull some cards on how you can best have a conversation with this person so you can get your questions answered in that conversation. That's how you can turn that reading around. Does that make sense? Okay. Marion, someone asked me when they will die. Like you, Christiana, they were not ill or old. So I replied, When you stop breathing. Oh, that's a good one. I like that. Yeah. And sometimes I'll say, when God's ready to take you, that's in God's time, not in ours. Anna, making questions with assumptions is quite tricky. When will I find my soulmate? Will we be happy when we find the house we're looking for? Yes, 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 yes. Huge, huge, important point, people. When someone asks a question like that, you got to wind it back and say, okay, so let's take, will we be happy when we find the house we're looking for? You might want to roll that one back to, is it now time to buy a house for real? What do you need to know about buying a house right now? Are your expectations for what you're looking for a house appropriate? Wind it back. Wind it back before the assumption and start there. That's good. That's really good. Now, you notice that I am asking a lot of yes-no questions. And I know that tarot wisdom is don't ask yes-no questions, but if you ask the yes-no question and pull a card or a couple of cards, just see what you see. Maybe you see a clear yes or a clear no, or maybe you see the information that is necessary. Maybe yes or no is another way of asking, what can we know about this? And just interpret the cards the way they come up. If it feels yes, yes. If it feels no, no. And the cards will tell you why and what else you need to know. If it feels neither yes nor no, then you can rephrase the question again, but interpret the cards around the issue. Be flexible and fluid in the way you play with this. Does that make sense? Okay, so Cheryl, back to our example. She was asking for herself and her boyfriend. My reading started at the beginning of the relationship and I felt stopped at the current situation. Do you think you felt stopped because it was ill-advised for her to be moving in together, or because you already perceived it was not going to happen, perhaps? Claire, would you do a mirror spread as in person's A answers and person B's answers? Yeah, I absolutely might. How is it for this person and how is it for this person? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Cheryl, the Two of Cups did finally show for an end card. Yes, you are correct. I did give her advice on staying in her power and asking for what she needs to be in the relationship. Very well done. Okay, so when we talk about these questions and techniques, we're going to get to the techniques in a moment, but let's get back to establishing some important things about questions. If you are a person who does not like to do predictive readings, then you want to get away from the wills and shoulds and get to the who, what, where, when, why, and how questions. That will be helpful. I think the best way to handle yes or no questions is just pull a card, pull a couple of cards, see what you feel, see what comes up, and don't necessarily expect the yes or no answer, expect information. When you're asking the yes or no question, what you're really asking is give me information on this topic and see what comes up. And just let that be your intention. Does that make sense? Let's play with that for a minute. Okay, I want you to formulate in your own life a yes or no question. It could be a should I, it could be a will I, it could be a does. Any question that is yes or no. And pull a card or a couple of cards. Let's make a rule and say not more than 4. Pull 1 to 4. If you want, you can start with 1, and if 1 doesn't answer it, pull 2. If 2 doesn't answer it, pull 3. If 3 doesn't answer it, pull a 4th. And read it all together. I will do one as an example. I'll do a fun one. Should I consider getting a dog? Okay, there's my question. Of the universe, should I consider getting a dog? My first card, King of Swords. To me, that would say, since the King of Swords is the leader of thinking, which is considering, and I did not say, should I get a dog? I said, should I consider getting a dog? This says, yes, consider it, but make sure you consider all the aspects of it. The king is the leader, so he would know all the aspects. So, yes, I should consider getting a dog, right? Then I might say, okay, what would it be like if I got a dog, right? And then I'm going to go on from there. So play with that and see how it goes for you. Veronica, I like how you break things down into very practical and specific questions. Yes. And this comes, thank you, this comes from marrying logic with intuition. Put those two things together. Logic with intuition. Marry those two things together and you will never go wrong. Dave, I like your what does the universe want me to know variation that can be adapted into most situations. What does the universe want me to know about getting a dog? Absolutely. Let's ask that one. Two of Pentacles reversed, that I do not have the resources for a dog. Yes, I should consider it at some time in my life, but right now I clearly do not have the resources. Neither the time, nor the money, nor the energy. And that's a fact. And so there it is. Okay. Okay. So, Cynthia, can I ask with can I? So can I is so interesting. Can I sing well? I wonder what the cards would say about that. And so, I mean, yeah, you can ask any question you can formulate. I'd love to hear the rest of the question on that. Okay, so play with that and let me know what you get. Let me know where we go here. Now, we've talked about breaking out a question, unwinding back a question. How should I read the Strength card? As a yes or a no? Depends entirely on what the question was. And this is my technique. I know other people have different techniques, but I would never see any particular card as always a yes or always a no. I would interpret it in the context of the question. So tell me what the question is, and I'll tell you how I would interpret the Strength card there. Okay. So the whole thing around rephrasing questions. Sometimes it's not about rephrasing the question. It's about asking the question as it's first asked or winding it back so you get past the assumption and then move forward to the question. Like Cheryl did, going back to the beginning of the relationship and then moving forward. Sometimes it's you didn't get the answer that made sense to you or that really answered the question. So doing more, breaking it out, more questions for more information. Sometimes if you really can't see, okay, will I get a job soon? Or will I meet someone soon? And you don't see it. Then you can ask different questions like, okay, 3 months from now, what do we see your career life looking like? Or 6 months from now, how do we see your love life? And it's almost like you're tricking it into telling us what's going to happen in the future. If it's unclear, that's another way to do it. Okay. Claire, I did ask if we should get another cat and I got Strength reversed. And it's true, I'm not ready just yet after losing my 8-year-old cat. I'm so sorry for your loss. Marion, I asked, will I get into a college course I want to apply for? I got the Sun. For me, that would be super yes. Dora, I agree. The card is not a yes or a no. The question will define this and also our moment and our gut. Yep, agreed. Cheryl, I'm not sure if I was too energy drained or simply didn't see a future in the relationship. And that's an interesting thing too. Yes, you need to look at yourself as a reader. Where are you at in this process? You know, are you hungry? Are you tired? Did you have too much to drink? Where are you in the process? Obviously, the alcohol one would be in a casual reading, not a professional reading, I would hope. Yeah, so that all makes sense as well. Okay, so now let's talk about reading techniques. Claire mentioned a good one. If there's more than one person involved in a situation, reading for them in the situation and reading for the other person, person A and person B. Sometimes if it's a family, you can make up a whole spread with, okay, well, this is where this person's at, this is where this person's at. Or pull one card for each person and see how those cards interact with each other. Disco Bunny, Kristen, I have trouble breaking down questions when I'm dialoguing with the cards or get a major or a spread full of majors. So vague, overarching. How to tease that out. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about the majors. Majors do not always have to be vague. We do not always have to give the deepest spiritual meaning to the majors. You know, the majors can be very mundane. For example, we just saw a great question with Claire. Should I get a cat? Strength reversed. The woman with the cat showed up upside down. Done. We don't have to go further into that, right? And so learn for the major arcana their mundane meanings as well. For example, the magician can be school. The high priestess can be patience or silence or being a nurse. The empress can be pregnancy or being nurturing. The emperor can be leadership or responsibility or politics. The Hierophant can be going to the doctor or getting a master's degree or using your authority. So I feel like you're letting the deep lessons and messages of the major arcana overwhelm you, but they don't have to be part of every reading. Okay, so that's one thing. That's one thing. And so when you're breaking out the question, sometimes you're going to use your intuition just with the question itself, thinking about what else would you like to know about this? What else would you like to know about this? Oh, that's a good one, Dora. The hermit looking for the car keys you lost. I know they're in here somewhere. Right? No, totally makes sense. So, you know, any question, like let's go back to the, should I consider getting a dog? Well, the money part of a dog, the time part of a dog, what sort of dog? How would having a dog affect your career? How would having a dog affect your relationship? You know, there's so many things you could think about without even looking at the cards. The breaking out of the question does not always have to involve the cards at all. It can, and I'm going to show you some techniques on that. But it can just be your logic and your intuition recognizing that there's a lot more to this story than there is, you know, just that question. And so it doesn't always have to be from the cards. It can simply be from your logic or from your intuition. Hey, Chris, nice to see you here. Glad that you are here. Hey, Jill, happy to see you. Happy recent birthday. Glad you're here. Okay, so Karen says you need a pendulum to find things, not a tarot card. Disagree. I mean, yes, you can find things using a pendulum, but you can also find things with tarot. Absolutely. So there's your where, you know, and this is where you want to learn a lot of different meanings for the cards and think about the cards a lot of different ways. Is it in my car? Well, the Chariot would say it is. Is it in the house? The Ten of Pentacles would say it is. Remember that the suits have direction, right? Swords is to the east. Is that true? Yeah. Swords is to the east. Pentacles is to the north. South is wands. And west is water. You know, so there's lots of ways to find things with the cards. Absolutely. And this is something I'm going to say about tarot. You know, there are a lot of people who like to put limitations on tarot. And, you know, like the majors are always spiritual. The majors are things you cannot change. You can't do yes or no questions with tarot. You know, all of these limitations. And I'm going to say that the only limitation to tarot is the limitation we put on it. Now, we've already said, you know, there may not be an answer to every question, but there is a way to do a reading around every question, right? Now, let's talk about, too, what is a reading? I would say a reading should answer more than one question, will involve more than one question, and may use more than one spread or more than one technique. A good reading session, even if it's short, should be able to handle multiple questions and use multiple techniques. Now, today we're talking about non-spread techniques. Does that mean that I hate spreads? No, I love spreads. That's just not what this class is about. And Martha, so nice to see you. Glad that you're here. Okay, Betty, can you talk about putting, say, 5 cards in a sentence, like subject, verb, adjective, adverb? Sure. And here's the thing. And many of you know about my love of mushing. What is mushing? That's something we made up here in this group. The word, anyway. The idea that you don't need to read cards in a linear way. You know, if you're working with Lenormand, then yes, the card you pulled first is different than the card you pulled second. But in tarot, unless you've decided to do it that way, it doesn't have to be. You can pull a few cards and put them together any way you like. So you can say, okay, this is what the reading is about. So there's your subject. This will modify the subject, so it's the adjective or the adverb. This is what this is what is happening, or this is what people are doing or what is happening, so it's the verb, right? So you can do it that way, or you can just take the group of cards and decide, well, which do you think is the subject? Which do you think is the modifier? Which do you think is the action? And it might be the action that is happening or the action that is advised. And you can do that by saying, okay, I'm going to pull a card, what is happening and what is advised that I do? Just like that. Or you can just pull a couple of cards and decide. So let's play with that. That's kind of fun. Let's play with that. I want you to just think about your life right now, just your life. Pull 2 cards. And look at those 2 cards and decide which one is telling you something that is now happening and which one, by looking at them, not the order you pulled them, but looking at them. Of these 2 cards, which one is telling you what is happening and which one is offering advice or situation? And play with it that way. So that's a way to do it. And that's a good exercise. So let me know how that goes. And Marcos, Anna, you do a lot of mooshing with the first and second card of the Celtic Cross. Yes, you can definitely moosh within a spread. You can look at the cards in the context of their position and then let them come out of their position and mush them around. You absolutely can do that, and a lot. And for finding things, one can take a card per room. Yes, absolutely. Okay. Now, so let's talk about this dialogue technique. And remember that a dialogue technique can use a lot of small spreads. Like help and hinder. How will this help you? How will this hinder you? Like the mirror spread that Claire was talking about. How is it for this person? How is it for that person? So you start with your one question. And I think the most significant piece of this dialogue technique is there is no set number of cards you will pull. You will pull the number of cards that it takes to either answer the question or lead you to the next question. And that may be start with one card, and if that one card does it, you're good. If that doesn't do it, let's look at another card, and don't necessarily see the second, third, fourth card you pull as clarifying the first. It might not. Mush them around. Which card is most significant? Which card gives you the information? Do not think about the order in which they are pulled. Then when you have your answer, does your answer form another question? Or if these cards do not answer your question, what do they tell you about the subject? What do they tell you about the situation? That forms your next question. And my trick is I like to put the cards all back into the deck, shuffle again for the next pulls. That way we have the option for a repetitive card within that session, and that card becomes very, very significant. You really want to dig into that card. Okay. Dora, I tend to mush in big spreads. Sometimes I even forget the positions. I think that's good. I do that as well sometimes. Marion, okay, so for the exercise, I got Death and the Nine of Cups. I feel my life is the Death card just now as I'm going through changes, and the Nine of Cups is the advice. All these changes will be worth it. Very good. Very, very good. Now, as an exercise, switch it up. Can you see your life as the Nine of Cups? And how would Death then be the advice? Switch it up and have some fun with that. Anna, a true doubt. Can one card be mushed with more than one card in a spread? Oh, absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. And how do they go together? Now, when you're putting a group of cards together, find their similarities. Are they similar in color, in image, in keyword? Are they similar in number, in suit, in rank, if it's court cards? What do we see, and what does that similarity tell you? And what about the opposites? Is that first one then the other? Does one solve the other? Or is it like, well, in this way, this is this. Is it a dichotomy? There are many dichotomies in life. Sometimes that will show up within the cards. Okay. Karen YouTube. So Wheel of Fortune, changing and evolving, Page of Swords, new path, the Empress. This will give me feminine growth and fulfillment. Okay. Okay, very good. Now, let me dig into that a little bit. And with the Page of Swords, I would see the Page of Swords, Okay, so with Wheel of Fortune, you're going to interpret it as changing and evolving. That's great. So the Page of Swords lends itself to that Wheel of Fortune because the Page of Swords is also figuring out what is true. It is learning. And so you've got a connection there. If you see evolving with the wheel and the page is learning, then there is this growth forward, right? Now with Empress and Page, that can also be mother and child. So is there a family dynamic going on here? With Wheel of Fortune, we can also see repetition. And so is there something that is being repeated in a way that's going to work? Is there something that's being repeated in a way that's not going to work? So you can put these cards together in so many different ways. With the Page, too, there's also communication. Is there something that you've been saying over and over and over again that needs to be said in a different way in order to be heard? So much you can do with those cards. Okay. Karen Winkle. Page of Pentacles reversed in Magician. I think the Page is the current situation and the Magician is the advice. Beautiful. Love it. Hey, Clumsy Clairvoyance. So nice to see you here. Marta. Excuse me. So we take a card and then put it back and shuffle them and pick another. Yeah, or a few cards. So you have a question. Was that helpful, Karen? Good, good. So you have a question. If one card answers it, then yes, you've got the answer. So now what's the next question that evolves from that? take this card, shuffle it back in, ask the next question. Now, if that first card does not answer the question adequately, pull some more cards until you either have an answer and a next question or surrounding information around the situation and a next question. Put them all back in, shuffle, and ask the next question. Okay, here we go. Betty, she asked of the cards, how can I be a better tarot reader? Two of Pentacles, Ace of Wands. Stop going back and forth and just enjoy reading the tarot. That's so beautiful. And also, allow, with that Ace of Wands, allow spirit to be part of this. Recognize you are channeling a spirit. You are channeling spiritual information, and recognize that process. And with the Two of Pentacles, there's something too about practice, practice, practice. Dang. Yeah, that's a very Yankee word, Karen. It surely is. Okay, here's Dave doing the exercise. And thank you, Karen, YouTube, so much for being with us. Really appreciate it. Eight of Swords reversed. Livelihood stolen from me. True. Ace of Pentacles reversed. Money troubles ongoing. Seven of Wands reversed. Tends to be a struggle. Dang, that sounds dark. There we go. But, so ask, what do I do with this? If it feels dark, ask, what do I have to do to make this better? I think with a tarot reading, we always want to assume that it's going to get better. It'll be better in the end. If it's not better now, it's because it's not the end. So what can I do to make it better? You can't solve everything, but you can make things better. So if it feels dark, so let's do that for Dave. Dave, what can you do to make this better? Knight of Wands reversed. Recognize that with all of this difficulty, you have started to feel beaten down. You have started to feel like you don't know how to move forward. So that's the next question. So what do you have to do to remember how to move forward? Six of Pentacles reversed. It may be about remembering to ask for help. It may be about thinking about how you can use your skills in a different way. What else do you need to know about that? The Star reversed. You know, you have to have hope, and you have to remember that you are a magician. When all fails, use magic. If you use magic, what should your focus be? The Queen of Swords reversed. To stop thinking in the negative and start finding your solutions. It's all in you. If you do that, what will the outcome be? The freaking Emperor, dude. I can't make this up. You'll be on top of it again. You'll be a community leader. You'll have what you need. Use magic to help heal from what has happened and to change this cycle you're in. Seriously. And that, my friends, was the behind the scenes look at how to do a dialogue. Make sense? Helpful? Okay. Baby Cakes, thank you so much for this. We've got 42 people here. Thank you all for being here. And only 13 people have liked the video. Please like this video. And if you have not subscribed, please do. Okay, so Karen did Ace of Cups and King of Cups. Ace is the situation, King is the advice. So what does that tell you? Chris got the Devil and the Queen of Wands. Not sure, but it means to be careful in pursuing my dreams and not be obsessed with it. So were you doing the exercise of one is what's going on and one's the advice? Which is which for you, do you think? Okay. Anna, Nine of Pentacles, Six of Cups. Being financially stable has allowed me to go back to doing things I abandoned in my past. Beautiful, beautiful. There you go. Thank you, Betty. That's sweet. Marta, I have two different decks. One is Moonology and Crystal Angels. What do I think of a question and... what I do is think of a question and shuffle and pull the card that jumps out. I picked it. I do that 3 times. Is that okay to do? If it works for you, it's very okay. There is nothing that is not okay to do if it works. What I like to do is say, learn many techniques, because there's going to be a day when any technique you use is going to fail the situation. It doesn't mean that you're bad, it doesn't mean that you have failed, and it doesn't mean that that technique has gone bad on you. It just means that in this situation, that technique isn't working, and that's why you learn many, many techniques. Okay. Yep, and that's what Dora says. Your deck, your rules. If it feels right, just do it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, Disco Bunny. 8 of Cups reversed. Need to walk away, but I'm stuck. Ace of Cups. Use the intuition. Or Ace of Cups, have intuition, so maybe you don't need. What about Ace of Cups is the healing of the heart? The reason you can't walk away is because your heart is not healed. Remember that the Ace of Cups can also be the heart chakra and the open heart and healing the heart. What about that? You know? Hey, La Morena, nice to see you. Glad you're here. Okay, so we are in our last 4 minutes. What questions do you have for me? What would you like to know? And I do want to reiterate, this is not the only way to read tarot. It's a tool. The tools I wanted you to learn. How to play with the questions, how to break up a question, how to wind back a question, how to rephrase a question, how to handle yes or no in a really interesting way, how to find a flow with this. The idea that a tarot reading session could be more than one technique and many more questions than one, that within most questions are many questions, that not every question is answerable, but even if a question is not answerable, you can still do a great reading by using these techniques. So, should these be the only techniques you use? Oh, heck no. You should use lots of techniques. But add this into your toolbox and play with this. And this will help you in being able to give a great reading. Okay, Dora, you said 7 of Swords. What about 7 of Swords? Are you asking about 7 of Swords? Are you asking about what 7 of Swords means? Did I just come in? Help me out there. Okay, Claire, exercise, judgment, and the 2 of Wands. Opening to a new life and looking for possibilities. It's all good. Yeah, absolutely. And putting the past behind you. Recognizing that you did great. And you can move on from there. Absolutely. Absolutely. Claire says, I love this lesson. Sometimes you forget to be more lateral. Yes. And remember that if you marry intuition and logic, sometimes you break out the questions without even using the cards. But that is part of this process. We bring our whole selves to the reading, right? And so if you come to the reading with a curious mind, and from the question, okay, so the cards you pulled for which? For the, oh, here we go. I see, I missed that one. Thank you, Dora, sorry. 7 of Swords in the world. Stop sabotaging, acknowledging you have enough. Acknowledge you have enough. Yeah. Trust yourself and trust the world. Yes, 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 I get it. Absolutely. So thank you all so much. And Betty likes as a question, who am I right now? Yeah, I love that. Richard, what does having many court cards in a spread mean? It could mean many parts of yourself that you have to deal with. It could mean many people around you. There's a lot of people around you. And what are you doing with those people? Do you have to deal with those people? Are you giving them too much energy? You don't even have to figure out which people they are. Just recognize there's a lot of people there. Okay. Clumsy clairvoyance. Sometimes more is less with the cards. I find occasionally that when I keep pulling more and more, the message of the reading can get lost or cluttered. Honestly, I would say you only want to do that, the keeping pulling cards, is if the first card was not sufficient. Don't do it by habit, do it by need. Luna Song, thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Marta, I pulled 3 times the same card, right? There you go. Okay, I want to thank you so much. Okay, now I am just going to drop once more the link to my next class on Zoom. Please check that out. Please, please, please. And also, be back here in just an hour's time at 12:30. There's another link. You'll find it right here on the channel. I will be back for your Saturday Psychic Sampler, where I'll spend some time doing some free readings, specific questions only. Bring me your specific questions, and we'll make that happen. Also, make sure you check out the live tarot webinars playlist so you can see the classes you've missed and watch them. And so you can see the classes and meetups that are coming up, and make sure you set the reminder so you can get reminded when it's time. And remember, I am now doing live readings on this channel 4 times a week, next time being in 1 hour. I want to thank you all so much for being here. Please do like this video. Please do subscribe to this channel. While we are here, please also subscribe to StarCast. That's STAARCAST. That is our podcast about StarCon, our annual tarot conference. It will be held next year, January 21st through 23rd in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, and also online on Accelerants. All the classes are right here, Marta, except for the Zoom class, which is once a month. It's a premium class, and that is on Zoom. All right. Thank you all so much for being here. Take good care. I really appreciate you all.